Hey everybody, this is Craig from 9 Volt Games. Long time no regular video, so big video for today. Don't know why I'm clasping my hands, probably because it's fucking cold. Um, tis the season for your kids to hide one of your... Pro tip, one of the worst parts about having kids, I got these really awesome LL Bean slippers, and they're nice and cozy and warm for times like this. My fucking daughter hid one somewhere in the house. It's been 2 days and I can't find it. So, she's 2. Innocent, cute little girl doing little kid things. What's that got to do with anything? Well, we're talking about Bioshock today. Okay? And it's full of them. Little girls doing awful things. Except for Infinite. But we're going to get into it. So, like I said, it's been a long time since I've done a regular video on this channel. I've been doing a lot of streaming. Well, the streaming I've been doing lately is what's leading up to some of these videos. So I like to stream when I'm feeling it and I want to play games. If I'm willing to like sit up and sit in front of the TV and set the stuff up. If I'm going to play games, I don't have a lot of viewers as it is. I don't mind streaming. You know what I mean? So unless it's something I'm involved with. So basically, if you see me streaming something like Bioshock and I'm going back to play something I played previously, it's because I want to share it. It's not something I've got to be super involved in. So I did Bioshock I apologize. I don't remember which person asked me to stream Bioshock. But my son saw this. I have all the originals. I bought all the Bioshocks as they came out. And I ended up buying this one so that I could replay Infinite. I had no interest in going back and playing 1 and 2. And my oldest son, who's 8 years old, he saw this. It's because I alphabetized in one of the videos on my other channel. I alphabetized, and this one's right at the top. And he's like, "Dad, what's Bioshock?" And I was like, "Well, you can say it. Let's talk about it." And I was like, I'm not playing Bioshock 1 in front of you. I think 2 would be too scary for him. And I was like, but Infinite's brightly colored, right? It deals with some heavy material, but I think most of it will go over his head. Or if you wanted to discuss it, it's important stuff to discuss anyways. Racism and why people are treated differently and fucking crazy religion. Not all religion, just the real crazy people with it. So we started playing Infinite. After we got to Columbia, he didn't really care. So he was like, "What about Bioshock 1 and 2?" Because I said it's not appropriate. He really wanted to know. 8-year-old curiosity. And I told him, maybe I'd play 2, but I think for Dad, going back to play Bioshock 1, it's going to be really difficult. All right? So I went ahead and I actually just started playing Bioshock 1. I showed him the intro. I showed him the trailer. I asked him if he thought it was scary, right? He said no, but he seemed really interested. So we played the intro. He went to bed. I ended up playing it for like 2 hours, right? And I was like, I love this game. I didn't know that they redid the dynamic lighting system. You know what I mean? They polished it. I thought they were just straight up versions of Bioshock 1 and 2, and it was just put on the collection, and the only one that was really brought up was Bioshock Infinite because it was the most recent. I was wrong. They polished Bioshock 1 and 2. I did have some glitches. I'll go into that in a little bit. Only in Bioshock 1 and 2. I didn't have any in Infinite because I beat Infinite on here a while ago, and I went back and played it again recently. So with fresh perspective of playing Bioshock 1 and being like, I remember like how much I loved this game. And I thought it was a bad idea to go back to. And I ended up streaming like the last 5 or 6 hours of the game. Even on this channel is the ending, the Fontaine fight, which is super disappointing. But the whole game is an entire package. It's just fucking amazing, right? Even though you know the twist is coming, the "would you kindly," that was one of the first, like, obviously it's not the first, like, propel you forward with the story or intrigue you with the story and the environment. It's not the first one to do it. It's not even the first one from these people to do it because they did System Shock and System Shock 2. But it was the first one where you did blindly follow orders as I think this is a why. Now you know what? This is a why I love series, and this is going to be as Bioshock as a whole because I do love this series. But Bioshock 1, man, I loved it. Right? That when you finally make it up to it and you realize you've been doing all these things, and then you realize why. If you've never played Bioshock, shame on you. I can't even believe you're on this channel. Bioshock was amazing. Even if you didn't play 2 or Infinite, I feel like everybody played Bioshock 1. Bioshock 1, I believe, sold the best, right? I know Bioshock 2 sold less. I started to look at numbers, and I didn't really go into Infinite, but I started looking at numbers while I was looking up, years and stuff. I was looking up actresses, voice actors, etc. for these. And I feel like everybody played Bioshock 1, right? Um, but when you got to Andrew Ryan's office and a little bit before, and you started seeing the "Would you kindly" being written on the wall, and then Andrew Ryan's the whole "a man chooses, a slave obeys," it was like that whole thing. You're like, oh my god, not just for this game. It's just like I was blindly following what this dude was telling me to do the whole time, and I was aiding the bad guy. So it was like a mind blown thing. And I loved Bioshock Infinite, and up until I went and replayed these ones, I thought Bioshock Infinite was my favorite. My opinions turned. Like that was one of my favorite moments in gaming history. So like I'm beaming about it right now, and I beat it. It was over a week ago. So then I was like, you know what? I didn't like Bioshock 2 when it launched. I think now, back in retrospect, I was burned out from FPSs, and I attribute that mainly to how long I was playing Fallout 3 in New Vegas. Right? I think New Vegas was out by the time Bioshock 2 came out. But I'm not sure. Either way, I played $700, 700 hours. Probably saved myself $700 worth of games while I was playing Fallout 3. I played 700 hours by the time I started my 9 Volt Games channel, which was in 2010. So within a 2-year gap, I put like 700 hours between 4 characters on Fallout 3. So when Bioshock 2 came out in what? Now I can't remember the dates, and I looked them up. Was it 2010 or 2011? I believe it was 2011. Usually I can see it on here. Right now I can't. 2010. Yeah. I thought it came out in 2011. Maybe I bought this one in 2011. No, I bought Bioshock as it came out. I even got the nice grooved one. But anyways, so 2010, within 2 years. I was so burned out from FPS, I think by the time that Bioshock 2 came along, and I got into that first fight with the big sister, and I was like, it's the same. I don't want to do it. And then when Bioshock Infinite came out, it was in a different setting. And Dan and I went, and we have a picture together sitting inside of fucking Songbird's claw. That's back when I had it its original design. Yeah, we went to PAX, and it was a huge fucking deal, right? But the worst part was I remember going up, and they were talking about Bioshock Infinite, and I went to Irrational Games, and they're like, "Are you guys excited for Bioshock?" And I was like, I don't know, I didn't like Bioshock 2. With a straight face. I was like, I'm looking forward to it, but I didn't like Bioshock 2. So, but I was like, but Mortal Kombat reboot is being played downstairs. And they were like, cool. That was my most awkward moment with as press anything, by the way. And then I ended up playing Bioshock Infinite. Fucking loved it. The changing of the setting was just a huge deal to me. The story was consistent all the way through. The twist at the end, I think now back in retrospect, was a bit of a reach. But I'll get into that because I want to do each game individually. This is going to be a long video. But anyway, so I already talked about Bioshock 1 and what made it great. The environment, being underwater, and most underwater level in games suck. Most underwater levels in games suck. They're terrible. This whole game's underwater. It's in an underwater city. It's underwater. And that was a new setting for horror, at least for me at the time. And, Mr. Bubbles, who's in the fucking everybody's fish tank, was a scary, it gave you anxiety until you upped your character and you could actually face one with no problem. My throat's getting dry. Hold on. So it was like the action that I got out of Doom 3, because I like Doom 3, but I didn't like it as a Doom game. But to me, it was still a great game. And then a few years later, you got Bioshock, and Bioshock had the pacing of Doom 3, but it had a great story wrapped around it. It wasn't just guns. You had your plasmids. Every Bioshock, I always, as soon as I get up to the tier where you can just buy the ammo that you want for whatever weapon you want, you find the plasmid that you lock in on and you like and you upgrade. I'm always electric bolt shotgun. I do that with every FPS. I find a combo of two things I like in every FPS, and I generally stick with it. That proved true for Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, uh, and Bioshock 1, 2, and 3. Same thing. As soon as I got a shotgun, it was Electrobolt shotgun. It's a good combo. Just do it. But it provided that atmosphere to me that Doom 3 had, and it filled in every gap. And if I had played it consistently and not taken a break in between it, all three of those games would have had the same feeling for me. Obviously, at the time it came out, graphically it was amazing, which, graphics don't make a game. But if you're selling an atmosphere more so than the gameplay, which is what this game was doing, it was selling you an entire atmosphere, and then it built a gameplay around the atmosphere. With dynamic lighting, having things be drippy, dark, having puddles everywhere, good sound quality, hearing your enemies running from one side trying to hide in a wall behind you, but then you see a puddle and you fucking shock that puddle and you electrocute them. So that's bringing the atmosphere of the game into the actual gameplay, and that's what it did. But I remember playing this with fucking some big ass headphones on and hearing splicers running behind me. And it was an environment that, like, I go back and play it now. There's nothing scary about it. But at the first time I played this game, it brought a weird fear into me. And the only game that gave that to me beforehand was Condemned. I don't know if you guys remember Condemned. I believe I've done videos on here before. If I haven't, I will. So when Bioshock 2 came out, I think I talked enough about Bioshock 1. When Bioshock 2 came out, I was just like, oh, you got to play as a Big Daddy. Oh, now you're fighting big sisters. I was like, kind of took the human element out of it. I know the main antagonist is a human. Lamb was a human, but I was like, I just don't, whatever, and I shelved it. And I went back and played it right after I beat Bioshock 1. I said, I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to stream Bioshock 2. I didn't like the game. Maybe I can do some commentary and talk about the things that I didn't like. I streamed that game, stopped streaming, continued to play it. Streamed it again the next day, continued to play it until I beat it. I didn't even make it back to beat the game on stream. Bioshock 2 is now my favorite Bioshock. They picked up the pacing in it, which I didn't know was even a problem to me in Bioshock 1, because I said I liked it at the time because it went with the atmosphere. Well, the pacing of the game was really good, and it fit around the fact that your character is not as fast as a human because your character was a Big Daddy. Your character was not as fast as a human. That was one of my first complaints when I started streaming it again. I was like, oh, Big Daddies are so fucking slow. But then the more you accumulate weapons and the way that the game is level-based, instead of you having to backtrack through Rapture or it's not a huge open world, but you can go back at any time to pretty much any area unless it's flooded in Bioshock 1. And you can do pretty much the same Bioshock Infinite in segments of the game, but Bioshock 2 was level-based. And I think I like that more now as an adult. I shouldn't say as an adult. I was an adult when I started, but older, right? Because although now I sat and played the whole thing, if I had just stuck with it, I could do a couple levels at a time and then come back and pick it up. But the story was so good to me this time around, now having this huge break off of Bioshock and then playing Bioshock 1 and not having it be as effective the second time I played it through. Actually, I beat Bioshock 3 times. But not having it be as effective and then going into Bioshock 2 and be like, meh. I ended up liking the story a lot better. I liked playing as Delta. Unraveling the story that you weren't like the first Big Daddy, but you were the first one to have a perfected bond with a little sister, and then having that be your motivation for anybody. I'm not going to ruin the end of the story, but for anybody who hasn't played Bioshock 2, play it. It's great. It doesn't have the surprise twist that's going to, get you like Bioshock 1, but the story is compelling enough that it doesn't rely on having that amazing twist that kind of ties everything together. The story's good all the way through. And you're working with other citizens of Rapture, and then you get all this filler story in between from Bioshock 1 to 2, where they'll talk about Andrew Ryan and the aftermath of Andrew Ryan and Fontaine being gone and blah, blah, blah. I thought it was, for some reason, I thought it was running concurrently, but then you have people talking about how Andrew Ryan's gone within this game, so clearly he's already been gone, Fontaine's gone. and blah, blah, blah. So this is definitely worth it. It starts off really slow, and it makes you feel slow because the enemy of the big sister is so fucking fast. That's what made me feel like the game was slow. And it's not slow pace, it's a slow burn story. But I think I ended up beating this game in 10 hours or so, about 10 hours. So it's a slow burn game that can end within 10 hours. Obviously, I didn't do every single thing. Between all the, Bioshock 1 and 2, I did everything with all the little sisters. And I did it the good, righteous path because that's the way that you accumulate Adam. Like, you have to, if you're going to go the good route, you better at least take care of every one of them. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to build your character up. But yeah, it was phenomenal. I mean, it looks the same as Bioshock 1. I think the best way to play them obviously is here because, like I said, the dynamic lighting was changed. I had something that I kind of didn't notice as soon as it was pointed out to me. I was like, because I was playing it and I was like, man, these games looked really good. I didn't think they did anything to touch it up, but I was like, these games looked really good for their time. They still look good now. It holds up. They did some touch-ups. Then it made sense. But Bioshock, the collection is the way to play these two. Okay, I know I've done a review for Bioshock Infinite, so I'll keep the Bioshock Infinite part light. But I will say that they did do the touch-ups of Bioshock 1 and 2, and it wasn't without any negative parts. There are some points of the game where the AI got stuck in the walls or running against the wall. There was a couple during my stream where a Big Daddy would just stand there, and I'd just shoot him until he's dead. It didn't happen a lot, but it happened a couple times, and it kind of, when that happens, it takes you out of a game. And a game series that's so, hell-bent on delivering you an atmosphere and wrapping the gameplay around it, like I said earlier, it's kind of hard when the gameplay mechanics or the AI or any of that, it takes you out when it fucks up. Because then you're just like, oh, this is stupid. And it happened a couple times, but I was also streaming, so I wasn't fully immersed in the environment. If I was playing it by myself, in a dark room, all under a fucking Snuggie, getting weird, like I think it would have bothered me, but it wasn't a big deal. Like I said, I played these games before. If it was your first time playing it, I installed it. They had patches, whatever. It didn't fix that. There was a couple issues I had, but it wasn't anything game breaking. Obviously, I played them beginning to end. Feel free to check my trophies. It's all there. Bioshock Infinite. I haven't talked this long. I've been fucking mute for like a week. That's why I haven't streamed or anything. I apologize. But I'm getting excited talking about this. I'm losing my breath. And so Bioshock Infinite was an amazing game. It was a contender for me for Game of the Year when it came out in 2013. Up against Last of Us. And it wasn't so much the story that was great. It was the whole presentation of the game that was amazing, right? Troy Baker did a phenomenal job playing two characters. And the way that the story was presented and rolled out to you, in the whole multiverse within the Bioshock universe was a really cool reveal. And like I said, much of the same with the gameplay being wrapped around the environment, because obviously this time the skyhook had a huge impact on the game. That's how you got places. That was your first weapon in the game. And that's something unique to this series. I know other games might try and emulate it, or games before it have done it, but I don't think anybody's done it this successfully, where the background, is basically what dictates how you're going to do things. And that's something I really liked in Bioshock because it was a lot more open. It didn't have the claustrophobic feeling, and I felt like I needed a break from Rapture. And the fact that they tied it at the end to Rapture was fucking irritating. In case you're wondering why I'm talking about the ending of Bioshock 1 and Bioshock Infinite and not 2, is because the sales numbers on 2 were so much lower than these two games, which means that not everybody played it. I feel like everybody played Bioshock Infinite as well as Bioshock. But I feel like they didn't need to bring it back to Rapture, with the whole there's always a man, there's always a lighthouse, and there's always a city. Like, I don't feel like they needed to do that. I understand the position of the little sisters in this game, in conjunction with Bioshock 1 and 2, but it wasn't really the same. So it was kind of weird to bring it back I know they had the Boys of Silence, but whatever. Like they didn't. It didn't feel the same. It didn't feel right that they brought it back to Rapture. I understand why they did it in the connection with the multiverse, but I feel like they didn't have to. I thought that Bioshock Infinite could have stood on its own and just had that parallel universe, just like as we acknowledge it as gamers, be like, oh, this one starts at a lighthouse too. You know what I mean? And there's a crazy man running a crazy city. And they could have just left it at that and left the air of mystery, but I think it was actually I liked it at first, but the more I think about it after going back and playing the other ones, I was like, it's kind of like they went and brought it back to Rapture and talked about, Andrew Ryan and the whole events of what happened in Rapture, and then doing the parallel to what happened in Columbia and saying how they're all connected in one way or another. You're always the protagonist, you're always the antagonist. I felt like maybe someone was like, we need to close this gap and hammer home that it's actually part of the Bioshock series. I'm telling you guys, you didn't need to. But other than that, I really have no complaints. That was at the very end. And the end it helped. The end dragged on. That's what it was. But I do understand that they also did that lead in to have the DLC. So I kind of wish that it didn't feel. That could be the other part I'm bitter about. I don't think your ending should be a lead in for DLC. You know what I mean? I don't know. I know, obviously, if you want single player DLC, it always should happen before the game or after the game. But hopefully you understand the way that I mean it. Don't go back to Rapture just so that you can have the DLC be Rapture. It kind of felt cheap on the ending. I hope that rambling of the ending made sense. I've done videos for Bioshock Infinite before, so I don't want to harp on actual intricacies of the game too long because I've done it before. But I'm excited to see what happens with Bioshock 4. We were talking about that while I was streaming it. I know it's obviously going to be a new team. Ken Levine is not whatever. And I started talking about it and I said, you know what? It's okay that it's going in new hands. They kind of have a really good template. So they're either going to do a really great job or they're either going to fuck up or they're going to pull, they're going to pull a Star Wars, right? Episode 7, just go right down the middle, recreate the same exact thing. I hope they don't do that, but that's also a possibility. I feel like it's going to be one of those three parts of the spectrum, dead in the middle, really great or really bad. But the only thing I said I wanted to see is I want to see them try, and I want a new environment and a new type of story. And the only information that we have is that it's going to be a new environment and a new type of story. So that excites me. I don't want them to retread Columbia or Rapture. I don't want them to have, big daddies. I want them to have their own version of things. But Bioshock series is a series that I hold near and dear to my heart. It's fantastic, and I didn't know it at the time, but I met Ken Levine, and the guy's a genius. He created this awesome world. I know obviously it wasn't the same people who made Bioshock 2. Now that I'm telling you Bioshock 2 is my favorite, he still created this world that I think is amazing as both a first-person shooter fan, a fantasy fan. I said both, but there's three. First-person shooter fan, like a fantasy world fan, a vintage fan, and a horror fan. All those things smashed into one, and they created just one of the most perfectly imperfect series. And if you haven't delved into Bioshock, or you stopped at 1 or you stopped at 2, I implore you to finish the rest of the series. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry it's been so long. I'm going to try and stream games and then go back and talk about them. But this is, this whole series, this is why I love it. It's great. It's not just a game. It's an entire atmosphere and world that you can immerse yourself in for 10 to 12 hours and thoroughly enjoy it. Bioshock Infinite's a little longer than that, though. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope everyone is doing well.